Good morning, this is Madeline.
And I'm Howard.
And we're reading, first of all, Sight for White News for Friday the 20th of December. And we'd like to take the opportunity of wishing you best wishes for a happy Christmas and a healthy new year from all the Talking News team members. The Sight for White office at Millbrook House will be closing at lunchtime on Friday the 20th of December for the Christmas and New Year period. Although there will be a skeleton staff covering this period, the building will not be open to the public. The office will reopen at 9 o'clock on Monday, the 6th of January 2020. The first Thursday social group will be on Thursday, the 9th of January. The first Tuesday swimming group will be Tuesday, the 7th of January. The Wednesday coffee morning and low vision drop-in session will restart on Wednesday the 8th. If you are interested in joining any of these groups, please contact Laura Jasper on 52205 or by email members@iwsb.org.uk. Dress for Less Christmas and New Year closure. Dress for Less will be closing for Christmas on Saturday the 21st of December and reopen on Tuesday the 7th of January 2020. Thank you for your support during the last year.
The short story writing competition award ceremony took place on Monday 9th of December at the Riverside Centre, Newport, with a full house. The winners were announced as follows, and their winning stories can be heard later in the programme, together with a short interview with Melvin Hayes, recorded by Kelvin Curry from Vectis Radio. The Under-12s category winner was Ben Fry with his story Christmas Joy, read by Melvin Hayes. An additional prize was given to the youngest entrant, Adam Kirby, aged 6, with his story Christmas Present, read by Melvin Hayes. 12 to 17 category winner was Ella Breer with her story The Sound of Christmas, read by Kate Weston. The highly commended category winner was Dr. Marguerite Howick with her story In the Blink of an Eye, read by Edana Minghella. 18 plus category winner was Roy Perry with his story Silent Nights, read by Michael Maloney. The winning stories can be heard following the county press. Christmas arrangements for the Talking News as follows. Friday, December 27th will be recorded as usual but not circulated. Friday, January 3rd as usual, but with news from Friday 27th also included. Please return your memory sticks as promptly as possible to minimise the effects of seasonal postal delays. Royal Mail and the Trading Standards Office are making people aware of the following scam. A card is posted through your door from a company called PDS, that's Parcel Delivery Service, suggesting they were unable to deliver a parcel and that you need to contact them on 0906 661 1911, and that's a premium rate number. If you call the number and you start to hear a recorded message, you will already have been billed £315 for the phone call. If you do receive a card with these details, then please contact Royal Mail Fraud on 020 7239 6655, and for more information see the Crime Stopper website. The website for that is http://crime-stoppers.uk.org/crime-prevention/helping prevent crime/scams postal delivery scam. Please be aware that the premium rate number may change, but nevertheless, please do not call any number stated on the card from PDS.
Scam messages. Beware of text, emails and social media messages purporting to be from Argos. The message will be asking you to click on a link which will take you to a website controlled by criminals to steal your personal and financial information. If in doubt, do a web search for Argos and look on the official website for the gift card offer. Do not use the link within the message. Do you care for a vulnerable adult? Have you heard about the Herbert Protocol Safe and Sound? The Herbert Protocol is a form that carers, family or friends of a vulnerable person can fill in. It contains a list of information to help the police if the person goes missing, including medication required, mobile numbers, places previously located, a recent photograph. Recording this information ahead of time and keeping it regularly updated will greatly reduce stress associated with trying to recall detailed information in an emergency situation. This form can be downloaded at www.met.police.uk/Herbert Protocol. We will be visiting the Isle of Wight Pearl on Monday the 10th of February. On this visit we will join the Perl Masterclass, a free informative talk about pearls. The talk lasts about 30 minutes and there will also be an opportunity to look around the centre or have refreshments in the cafe. There is no charge for the talk, but minibus may be available depending on location for a donation of £2. Closing date for applications is Monday the 20th of January. For further information or to book your place, please contact the charity on 52205 or email members@iwsb.org.uk. Please note that all activities are subject to demand and availability of volunteers for driving and supporting as a sighted escort guide.
This week's In Touch, a festive farewell. What's fashionable this Christmas? The fine art of present wrapping, and farewell to producer Lee Cummertat. Fern Lulham assumes the role of festive fashion correspondent and gives the lowdown on what's hot this chilly Christmas. Emma Williams, who teaches visually impaired students at New College Worcester, gives the talk on techniques for daily living, talks Peter through the best way to approach the task of present wrapping, and just 3 of Lee Cummertat's favourite In Touch treasures from the past 11 years. The presenter is Peter White, producer is Lee Cummertat, and reporter Fern Lulham.
And now for the county press for Friday the 20th of December. Starting with the headlines. There are 3 headlines. Get your skates on. UKOG reveals Isle of Wight oil drilling sites. And Bob Seeley storms to election victory. Starting with Get Your Skates On. Campaigners delighted after ice rink approved. Plans for a new ice rink have been given the green light by the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee. The Smallbrook Ice and Leisure Centre, SILC, application had been recommended for refusal by officers due to concerns around site access, parking and drainage, but committee members refused to kill the dreams of island youngsters. The committee this week approved plans for the new facility, which will include an ice rink, multi-use courts, a climbing wall, trampoline area and 3 tennis courts, following the closure of Ryde Ice Arena 4 years ago. However, following an objection by Sport England regarding the loss of playing fields, the decision will require government approval. Committee member, Councillor Vanessa Churchman, urged members to support the application as an investment in young people and cited statistics detailing a lack of participation in youth sport, a problem, she said, the SILC would help address. An island resident has offered £1 million to the project, and I have only seen obstacles put in her way, she said. Councillor Mike Lilly argued ice skaters needed somewhere to train locally, rather than waking up at 3 a.m. and travelling to the mainland, and said the committee would destroy that opportunity if it refused the application. He said, "I'm not going to be responsible for killing the dreams of young people." Approval was granted with conditions attached relating to parking provision, traffic management and drainage, although the wording has yet to be determined. Dr. Zarida Drenning, who has spearheaded the venture and provided funding, said she was absolutely delighted at the decision and said desperate island sports clubs would benefit from the indoor facility. She said, "I know we still have to overcome the Sport England objections, but I think most of the conditions are reasonable and I am really excited. For sport it has been the most dreadful winter. Our island desperately needs an indoor sports facility." Nicola Rowe from Ride Arena Community Action Group said, "We hope a combined effort will not only return ice skating, but establish the island's first indoor tennis and netball courts."
Further details have been revealed about controversial plans to drill for oil on the Isle of Wight at an open day hosted by the company behind the project. At the event held at Newport Cricket Ground on Monday, UK Oil and Gas, that's UKOG, unveiled its plans to install 2 exploration oil and gas drills at Arreton and Godsill to see if a full-scale operation would be commercially viable. Both sites are on privately owned agricultural land, one near Arreton Barnes and the other off Whitwell Road. Provided planning permission is granted by the Isle of Wight Council, drilling would start in autumn next year. Once a flow test has been conducted, which is expected to take 60 days, UKOG will decide whether it's worth investing in full-scale drilling. A second planning application would then be lodged to carry out further drilling operations. If that happens, the sites would be in operation for an estimated 25 years. UKOG, which holds a petroleum exploration development licence to drill on the island, would transport the oil to Fawley on Red Funnel's freight ferry from East Cowes to Southampton. UKOG Chief Executive Steve Sanderson said he was pleased people had attended the open day with an open mind. He said people were interested in finding out more before making their minds up. He said, "If we drill our wells and it's not promising, the sites will be reinstated and there'll be no impact. But we would not be doing this if there was no chance of oil. We need to know if it's commercially viable." Mr. Sanderson said the drilling, not fracking, would benefit the island's economy by providing security and transportation jobs. UKOG has pledged to give a percentage of profits to the island if drilling goes ahead. Mr. Sanderson agreed the world should aim to become carbon neutral, but said oil and gas was still needed. UKOG said it intended to submit planning applications for the drilling sites early next year.
Bob Seeley storms to election victory. Bob Seeley has retained his seat as the island's MP. The Conservative candidate stormed to victory at last Thursday's general election with 41,815 votes, increasing his majority by almost 5%. Richard Quigley, Labour, received 18,078 votes, and Vix Lothian, Green Party, 11,338 votes. Carl Feeney, Independent Network, received 1,542 votes. Carl Love, Independent, 874 votes. And Darrell Pitcher, Independent Brexiteer, 795 votes. The turnout was 66.9%. Speaking at Medina Leisure Centre after the result was announced by the Isle of Wight High Sheriff Geoff Underwood, Mr. Seeley said, "As the island's MP, I will try to speak for everybody to the best of my ability. When I was elected, I said we needed to put the island on the map much more. Working with the Isle of Wight Council and Isle of Wight communities, whether it's getting more money for Island Line or the NHS, I think we are now punching above our weight. I can't promise to win every battle, but I will fight every battle." Mr. Quigley said his team had run a good campaign and had bucked the trend compared with the party's performance nationally. Ms. Lothian said without electoral reform, the country would return to Conservative governments. "We need more Green representation to give us the action on climate change we deserve," she said. The result meant Mr. Seeley increased his majority by 4.9%. He took a 56.2% share of the vote, compared with 38,190 votes and a 51.3% share in 2017. The Labour Party also increased its share of the vote from 23%, that's 17,121 votes, to 24.3%. There was a drop in votes for the Green Party from 17.3%, 12,915, to 15.2%. All three independent candidates, Mr. Feeney, 2.1% of the vote, Mr. Love, 1.2%, and Mr. Pitcher, 1.1%, received less than 5% of the vote and lost their deposit. For live coverage of the election count with exclusive video interviews, visit the General Elections section at www.countypress.co.uk.
HMP Isle of Wight triumphed over NHS Spartans at a charity football match held at Cowes Enterprise College on Sunday, raising almost £600 for music therapy sessions at Medina House School. It was a family event sponsored by the Unison Health Branch with a Santa's Grotto raffle and cakes. Players of the match were Conor Firmage of NHS Spartans and Kenny Cox of HMP Isle of Wight. It gets surprisingly competitive out there, but we always say charity is the real winner, said co-organiser Paul Hemmett. This year's matches have raised more than £6,500 for charity, and 3 more are planned for 2020. Isle of Wight NHS Trusted Chief Executive Maggie Oldham said, "One of the best things about the Isle of Wight is the wonderful community spirit, and the Spartans capture that perfectly."
Terrier Destroyed. A terrier belonging to the Isle of Wight huntsman and kennelman Rupert Inglesant will be destroyed on the order of a judge. After Tigger bit a Gatcombe dog walker on the thigh, he was dangerously out of control on 2 other occasions. Inglesant appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court on Tuesday, where Judge Anthony Calloway said he did not have to stand in the dock, telling him, "You are not the sort of person we ordinarily have in court. There is no need for you to stand in the dock." Inglesant, 55, of Gatcombe Village Road, was prosecuted under the Dangerous Dog Act. He admitted 3 counts of being in charge of a dog that was dangerously out of control on June the 25th, where an injury was caused, November the 3rd and November the 9th. Anne Smout, prosecuting, said after the first attack, Inglesant was subject to a conditional caution to keep the dog under control and muzzled in public. The court was shown a photo of the woman's injuries. Judge Calloway said, "It was quite a nasty bite mark with puncture wounds. The photo speaks for itself." On November the 3rd, a man was walking his friend's Labrador when they came across the terrier, snarling and barking. He had to use a stick to prevent the terrier from biting him. 6 days later, the court heard another man saw Tigger on his driveway, growling and snapping his teeth. He got a broom and used it to guide the dog away. He told the police, "It was frightening. I thought I was going to get bitten. It was a very aggressive animal and, in my opinion, will attack again." Barry Arnott, for Inglesant, said the huntsman had been involved with hounds and dogs for 30 years and had moved to the island in May. He and his wife were moving off the island within the next few months. He said Inglesant had never had a problem with a dog before and was of hitherto good character. He was adamant the woman's dog had bitten Tigger, which had caused him to retaliate. Since the attacks, Tigger didn't even go into the garden without being on a lead, and he no longer exercises or mixes with the hounds. Mr. Arnott said, "The dog has effectively been put in solitary confinement." Judge Calloway said the conditional caution had not worked, and it was with regret he ordered the destruction of the dog. He fined Inglesant £1,550 plus £85 costs and an £85 surcharge.
A Red Funnel captain who boasted he was the dog's badoodas out on the Solent has said he will sue the ferry company after he was cleared of causing a crash which left sailors fearing they would be crushed. Captain Ian Drummond was at the helm of the 4,000-ton Red Falcon ferry when it ploughed into a 32-foot Phoenix motor cruiser on September 29th last year. The yacht tipped about 70 degrees and almost capsized. Prosecutors alleged it could have been avoided if Captain Drummond had kept a proper lookout, but he was cleared of any wrongdoing following a trial at Southampton Crown Court. After the case, the 63-year-old said he would take legal action against Red Funnel because he was dismissed following the collision. An employment tribunal is expected to take place in February. Captain Drummond of Southampton said, "I'm just really relieved. As a Christmas present, I couldn't have asked for anything more. I've never been in this situation before. This has been hanging over my head and my family's for a long time." District Judge Anthony Calloway said it was a huge failing that Phoenix skipper Peter Jackson, who has since received a caution for failing to keep a good lookout, didn't see the oncoming ferry. Clearing Captain Drummond of misconduct, he said, "I'm satisfied the defendant did keep a proper lookout at the material time in the prevailing circumstances and conditions and was not to blame for the resultant collision."
Grand plans for Norris Castle. A glass lift, private jetty and a cricket pitch. Developers behind plans to transform Norris Castle into a 5-star luxury hotel with houses, a retirement village and underground car park have revealed their latest plans for the historic site. Representatives from GTS Property, which specialises in transforming historic buildings into grand resorts and has previously worked on the Four Seasons Hotel in Hampshire, were due to present the plans to East Cowes Town Council's Planning Committee last night prior to submitting a planning application. Built in 1799 by architect James Wyatt, GTS said the Grade 1 listed Norris Castle would undergo a multi-million-pound restoration to create 39 rooms, 18 residential properties and a retirement village on adjacent land. Property developer Uavend bought the castle at auction in 2016 for £4.5 million, announcing plans for a 110-bed hotel, wedding venue and spa with 53 homes in the 225-acre grounds. Now, 3 years and 15 master plans later, the plans have changed dramatically. No significant changes will be made to the castle itself except installing a staircase inside. Instead, rooms will be built in a box within a box, retaining the castle infrastructure behind a standalone framework. The front terrace will be redeveloped in a grass-covered, tiered wedding cake style comprising 18 rooms with sea views and a function room. A standalone removable extension will be added to the first floor of the castle, with a glass lift leading to a glass-walled mezzanine restaurant. The eroded sea wall will be restored and the sentinels turned into apartments. A 10-berth jetty will be home to water sports facilities and a private launch. Outbuildings will be transformed into 18 residential homes, 10 one-bed, 7 two-bed and 1 three-bed, plus a walled garden, spa and cafe. The proposed development also includes a retirement village on the adjacent Spring Hill estate and an access road from East Cowes Esplanade. The developers plan to repair the Esplanade landslip in order to build 50 retirement flats set back from the seafront and an underground car park.
3 people have been arrested after a man was reportedly beaten around the head with a baseball bat. A police spokesperson said the trio, a freshwater woman aged 36, Sandown boy 15 and Ryde boy 17, were arrested as part of an investigation into an incident of grievous bodily harm with intent at a freshwater address between around 5:30 a.m. and 6 a.m. on Tuesday, December the 10th. It's believed the 18-year-old victim from Freshwater was attacked with a baseball bat and hit a number of times. He suffered injuries mainly to his face and head, said the spokesperson. The 3 people have been released on conditional bail until January 7th.
Sea eagles update. 3 of the island's 6 white-tailed eagles are still residing this side of the Solent. The birds were released at a secret island location earlier this year. A 4th, G3-93, has been in Oxfordshire for several weeks, where he has been closely associating with the local red kites. It is believed he is following the kites in the search for food. As reported, 1 eagle has died and another, Culver, has been missing for several weeks. 2 of the island-based eagles, male G2-74 and female G3-24, have spent much of the past 3 months together. A more detailed report into the eagles is anticipated from Roy Dennis Wildlife Foundation soon.
Rescued circus tiger Simmi, who once had a special mention in the House of Commons, has died. Simmi hit the headlines in 2015 when then Isle of Wight MP Andrew Turner asked then Prime Minister David Cameron to intervene and help the Isle of Wight Zoo with a bureaucratic logjam preventing them from bringing Simmi to the island. The question came during Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's first appearance at Prime Minister's Questions. The zoo said last Thursday, "It's with great sadness we must report our beautiful tigress Simmi passed away last week after a short illness related to injuries sustained in her previous life as a circus performer." Simmi arrived on the island in January 2016. She was confiscated near Hamburg in Germany on animal welfare grounds, and our team first encountered her at a rescue centre in Belgium. With the help of the government, we were finally granted permission to transport her from Belgium to the zoo. She seemed to know she was heading for a rosier future as she slept throughout the entire journey, and upon her arrival soon developed a trusting relationship with the staff. This was remarkable after the way she had been treated by humans previously. Deputy Animal Manager Carolyn Lorick said Simmi was a feisty and highly intelligent lady who relished her training. She loved to run, chase and swim in her pool, always diving in head first. Simmi had a recurring problem with her back paw, which the keepers finally overcame. While the staff were able to treat her superficial wounds, Simmi had more severe underlying problems which finally took their toll.
Robin born by special delivery. The family of Robin, Poppy, Rainbow, Richins are looking forward to spending their first Christmas with their bundle of joy. Robin made a hurried entrance into the world, born in the front seat of the car on a stranger's driveway in Apps Heath. Her mother, Laura, said, "Robin was born in the car on August the 31st. My waters broke and the hospital said to go in. Our daughter, however, had other plans. On the way to hospital, I felt the need to push. I told my husband Dave and Mum, Kim Dewick, who were with me, and as we were deciding what to do next, I pushed. My husband quickly pulled over into a driveway. My mum jumped out and helped deliver Robin. We all stared at one another in shock and surprise as our little girl let out her first cries. We continued to the hospital where we found out she weighed 10 pounds 12 ounces. Robin will be enjoying Christmas with her family, including her 3 doting older sisters, Jessie 6, Molly 4 and Bonnie 2.
Controversial plans for a large housing development in East Cowes have been delayed after the Isle of Wight Council's Planning Committee voted to defer the application until it was provided with more information. The application for up to 165 houses at Crossways, submitted by Isle of Wight Developments, a joint partnership between the council and construction company Public Sector plc, was discussed at Tuesday's meeting. However, the application didn't specify the final number of houses that would be built on the council-owned site. Key information members said they needed before a decision could be made. Residents have raised concerns about another large housing development in East Cowes and the resulting pressure on infrastructure such as roads and sewerage systems and services such as schools and GP surgeries. Speaking after the meeting, planning agent Matt Richards said, "If members had gone with officers' recommendations, we could have secured the development. We would have come back with reserved matters, including the scale, infrastructure and other issues. So to ask for that detail now is very disappointing. The details would have been produced in any event. Now it's just delaying the delivery of affordable housing on the island."
Praise for young NHS volunteers. Young NHS volunteers have been commended at the annual Help Force Champion Awards. The awards are held to recognise NHS volunteers and a scheme run by the Isle of Wight NHS Trust and the Isle of Wight College, where health and social care students were offered practical placements at St Mary's, caught the attention of the judges. Cathy Armstrong, NHS Volunteer Coordinator at the Trust, said, "We are so excited to be nominated for this award. We have an excellent relationship with the college and schools and offer students a valuable insight into careers in the healthcare sector. Patients and staff are also benefiting hugely from their voluntary support. The small acts of kindness our volunteers provide are priceless and something our trust could not be without."
The Isle of Wight coroner has criticised the island's NHS after a woman was sent home from St Mary's Hospital without a discharge summary, leaving her GP in the dark about her treatment. An inquest heard Marina Holland, 84, died at the hospital on January 28th. She had visited the hospital a number of times following a stroke last year and also suffered from mesothelioma after she was exposed to asbestos at some point in her life. Following one hospital stay, she was discharged last November to Orchard House Care Centre in Newport, but there was no discharge summary attached to her medical records. Her GP wasn't informed about her hospital treatment or that she'd been sent to the care home. Isle of Wight NHS Trust Medical Director Alistair Flowerdew told the inquest, "We're in this conundrum where we need to make sure summaries are done before the patient leaves the hospital, but with the congestion we get throughout winter, some people end up leaving without them." Coroner Caroline Summeray said, "I sent a report regarding this issue about 11 months ago. It's important that when I have a concern, I raise it with the relevant bodies where I think it may go towards preventing future deaths." One doctor at a surgery in Newport has told me that in as many as a third of cases, he finds patients who've been discharged from the hospital with no summaries attached. If you have a patient with something like dementia who can't recall their own medical history and GPs can't find out, there's a real risk there. Mr. Flowerdew answered, "This death came at a time that was particularly difficult. We were really struggling with a lack of workforce. It's my hope that by next year, at least 90% of discharge summaries are done within 3 days of the patient being discharged." The inquest heard Mrs. Holland was born in Lincolnshire before moving to the island, where she worked at Blackwater Mill and St Lawrence care homes. Mrs. Summeray concluded she died as a result of mesothelioma stemming from an unknown origin.
Cathy and Millie in a 1,000-mile challenge. Looking for a retirement project that would benefit the community, Cathy Mills has set herself a challenge to walk 1,000 miles in 2020. The former Brading Town Council clerk is hoping to raise significant funds for the Alzheimer's Society UK. She was inspired to choose the charity after the TV series Gentleman Jack, when she was moved by the inspirational portrayal of Anne Lister by the actor Suran Jones. In Cathy's search for more information about the series, she came across a fan on Facebook asking people to take on the 1,000-mile challenge as a thank you to the actor, who champions the Alzheimer's Society charity. Cathy said, "My walk begins on January the 1st and ends on December the 31st. I'm aiming to walk 3 miles a day with my dog Millie, mainly from Yaverland to Shanklin and ride to Sea View. Collection tins can be found at Blueberries Cafe Lake, Salix Beach Cafe Shanklin and the Farm Shop and Number 8 Cafe Bembridge, or donate at justgiving.com/fundraising/Peter-Mills21.
A young man whose body was found at Northwood Cemetery took his own life. An inquest into the death of Jordan Phillips, known as Jordan Milmore, heard he'd long battled depression. The inquest heard the alarm was raised by his partner after he walked away following an argument. His body was found hanging at the cemetery on November 24th last year after his friends and family carried out a search. Isle of Wight coroner Caroline Summeray concluded Jordan, 21, of Mill Hill Road, Cowes, died by suicide.
Sandown developer goes bust. A developer that wanted to set up a string of businesses on the Isle of Wight, including a luxury beach club, has been placed in administration. The Insolvency and Companies Court heard Carloran Group investors put £76 million into projects across the UK. £50 million is unaccounted for. The BBC reported Carloran's chief executive, Sean Murray, had been accused of misappropriating company funds, which he denies. A barrister representing some of the investors alleged significant sums had been transferred into Mr. Murray's personal account. Mr. Murray previously told the court there were no missing millions, and although money had been transferred to him, it was held in trust for the company. Carloran bought properties including the Ocean Hotel and King's House. Both are in prominent positions along Sandown Esplanade, but left in disrepair. It also bought and developed the Auckland House Hotel in Shanklin, which is currently open and trading as part of the Heritage Hotel Group, which Mr. Murray resigned from on December the 2nd. Carloran Care is now in administration. Mr. Murray is listed by Companies House as an active director for 9 companies and is listed as having recently resigned from at least 12 further companies. Mr. Murray said, "I'm afraid I lost control. I hope they act in the best interest of everyone." Councillor Ian Ward, Isle of Wight Council Ward member for Sandown South, said, "Sandown's regeneration is visibly moving forward, but this issue is a step backwards."
A driver admitted to police he had a fake licence plate on his car. Cameron Baker, 24, pleaded guilty to one count of driving without due care and attention and another count of fraudulently altering the registration on his car when he appeared at the Isle of Wight Magistrates Court. Baker of Station Avenue, Sandown, also admitted driving without insurance and without a licence. On October 29th, an unmarked police car at Blackwater Road followed a vehicle that had overtaken at speed. Prosecutor Vivian Ducey said at around 11 p.m. the police began following the vehicle towards Arreton. It overtook 3 other cars in a 30-mile-per-hour zone and was seen to pass over a crossroads without stopping. Later on, the police found the vehicle parked on the roadside with the lights switched off. As police approached the driver to speak to him, he told the officers the car is on cloned plates. The police discovered the original plate belonged to a woman in Lymington who drives the same make and model car but has absolutely no connection to him. Baker's defence, Barry Arnott, said, "It's important to note these plates were not stolen." The defendant quickly admitted to the police the plates were clones, and he showed the police the vehicle had not in any sense been stolen. He says as he's responsible for seeing his daughter 3 times a week, he was unable to keep up with the insurance on the car. The police took the car away for not having any insurance. Sentencing was adjourned until today, Friday.
Success story for new Isle of Wight milk brand. Following the successful launch of Isle of Wight milk, the brand has been rolled out across more island shops. As reported, the idea was developed by Paul Griffin of Bridlesford Lodge Farm as a way to protect the island's dairy heritage, ensure farmers get a fair price for their milk and reduce the impact on the environment by reducing travel distances. Isle of Wight milk, which is produced at Reed's Farm in Carisbrooke and is processed at Bridlesford Lodge Farm, was launched in 3 southern co-op stores at the end of October and sold more than 4,400 litres in the first 5 weeks. It has now been rolled out in more stores, including Morrison's and co-op stores in Shanklin, Sandown, Rookley, Ryde, Bembridge, Cowes and Carisbrooke. Mark Reed, who runs Reed's Farm Partnership with his mother Casey and wife Jodie, said, "In our worst year, we were basically getting out of bed every day just to lose money. We had to make some very difficult decisions. This brand is about working together and ensuring a future for our family and our farm. It gives us hope." Currently, millions of litres of milk produced each year on the Isle of Wight are being transported to the mainland for processing. But using Bridlesford's new processing plant will cut the costs of production. Matt Elliott from the local flavours team at Southern Co-op said, "We had high hopes when we launched the milk, and quite rightly, as it has proved a huge success. The community has really embraced the milk and shown their support of local producers."
Ventnor Carnival has taken over running the town's Boxing Day swim. Resident Maria Sexton took over last year when it was feared it would not go ahead due to a lack of helpers. A carnival spokesperson said, "Maria did a great job, but it's hard for one person to organise, so we've offered to run the event. Proceeds will go to the People's Approach to Cancer Help, that's PATCH, Ventnor Carnival and Sandown and Shanklin Independent Lifeboat. Sponsorship forms are available from the Carnival website, the Mill Bay or Wendy's in the High Street.
Yarmouth snowstorm. A Christmas fair and a Moulin Rouge night of dancing raised £1,600 for the Yarmouth RNLI. The fair, including a snowstorm, grand raffle, crafts and carol singing, was held in the recently refurbished King's Head pub, and the Moulin Rouge night with dinner took place at Yarmouth Sailing Club. Fundraising chair Debbie Cotton said, "Both events were a great success. The dancers were brilliant at the Moulin Rouge night. It was such an energetic routine. The sailing club had candles on the tables, and we turned down the lights to make it more like a nightclub, so there was a terrific atmosphere. The craft fair was also a huge success. We opened it with our own Santa, Michael Craig, standing under a special eco-friendly snowstorm, and there was a real Christmassy atmosphere."
A project designed to support women through cooking, craft and creativity has received a boost from the Isle of Wight Foundation. White Dash has been given more than £11,000 to upgrade its kitchen facilities and create a homely setting in which women can take part in creative activities such as sewing and baking as part of an initiative to build confidence and develop a sense of belonging. Funding will also be used to buy play therapy and baby equipment for mother and baby sessions, designed to support women who may be socially isolated or lacking in self-esteem. New IT equipment, including a large interactive smart screen, will be used to enhance the learning experience for women taking part in White Dash's psycho-educational programs. Fiona Gwinnett from White Dash said, "This funding will allow us to expand our existing activities, which will bring even more great benefits to our members. Our kitchen is in need of all new equipment, and this will allow us to offer more food-based sessions. The fund will also allow us to expand the range of games and other resources used by our play therapist in the tremendous work she does with children who've experienced severe trauma. It's hard to sum up how much this means to us. Perhaps the best way to put it is that if we think about wow as a cake, this will be the icing on our cake." Each year, the Isle of Wight Foundation, comprising the companies behind Island Roads, gives grants of between £3,000 and £16,000 to island charities, good causes and organisations working to tackle social exclusion and isolation. Lorna Malcolm, the Island Roads receptionist who sponsored the White Dash application, said, "The work by White Dash to support women is incredibly important, and I'm really pleased the Foundation has been able to help this project. As well as the new equipment for sewing, craft and cookery, the funding will also be used to create a really homely environment for the women, something I feel is important for those taking part in White Dash's therapy sessions. So that concludes the first part of your talking newspaper for today. Goodbye, best wishes from Howard.
And best wishes from Madeline.
Hello, we now go on to the second part of the newspaper for today. I'm Linda.
And I'm Paul.
And we'll start with letters. And this is headlined Beautiful Game. And it comes from Marcus Cooper, who's an ex-player and father of players from Wootton. On reading the report on the Island League match between Sandown and Bembridge, I felt compelled to make a complaint. There were 2 photographs accompanying the report. One showed 2 players in an aerial challenge, and a second showed 2 players fighting on the ground, which was what I took exception to. Was it really necessary to choose a picture depicting violence other than to sensationalise the report? Bembridge won 5-0, but there was not one picture of a goal or goal scorer celebrating. Neither player, according to the report, was sent off. Had they been, then yes, it would have been a pivotal moment, but would it have warranted showing the ugly side of the sport? Also, how do the 2 players involved feel about being shown in this way, and will it cause further aggression next time they meet? Our national game is under constant scrutiny, and young boys and girls are attracted to the sport. If a young person is led to believe the highlight of the match was a fight, then surely that is sending out the wrong message and not promoting the sport as it should be. In contact sports, emotions run high, and yes, fights do happen, but people don't play and watch the sport specifically for that reason. Our island football community has great talent, and they are desperate to attract more officials to join the leagues, so let's not put them off joining. The written word would have been sufficient to describe the incident and hopefully the punishment duly awarded. They say, it's a funny old game and it's a beautiful game. So let's report it that way, especially for our younger audience. And then there's an editor's footnote. The report highlighted the goals and run of the game, but we felt the physical encounter was unusual enough to warrant a photograph.
Here's a letter deliver deal from Richard Quigley, Labour candidate for the Isle of Wight seat. On December the 12th, Island Labour achieved an increased vote and vote share, despite a national picture which saw Labour's votes fall across the country. I offer my congratulations to Bob Seeley on his re-election as the island's MP. While we will always disagree on politics, he was always courteous on the campaign. I look forward to Bob delivering his island deal, as there are no excuses not to in a government with an 80-seat majority. I hope the leader of our council holds him to his promise. Thank you also to the County Press and Isle of Wight Radio for organising the final hustings. It was well attended and well received by those who attended or listened in. My final thanks is reserved for everyone that got involved in the Labour campaign here, against the national backdrop of a fall in Labour support.
And another letter about the election from Geoff Brody, independent Labour supporter and Isle of Wight councillor for Newport East. So the country faces 5 years of a Tory government and Bob Seeley has been returned as our Tory MP. No surprises there then. Well done to Richard Quigley for an excellent and improved Labour performance, and maybe, just maybe, we may get an apology from Vix Lothian and her Green acolytes for the way they have misled some people, including that sorry bunch, the Lib Dems, into thinking they were the main challenger here at the last 2 general elections. Although not a Labour member anymore, I did some support work for Richard, endorsed his candidature by letter to all ward residents, and spent time outside our polling station. Labour's performance nationally has been a disaster, but it was something I had seen coming since the EU referendum in 2016. By disrespecting heartland voters to keep its members happy against the leader's instincts, Labour has now lost seats in my native North East held since the 1930s. I have old friends in County Durham who will now find out for the first time in their lives what it's like to have a probably largely absent Tory MP. Labour must now reconnect with its core voters if it's to recover from this disaster. You do that by listening to people, not blaming or ignoring them.
As continuing in the same form, reform needed from Vic's Lothian Isle of Wight Green Party candidate Newport. Last week's election of a Conservative government with a large majority is devastating for the environment, public services, our future in Europe, and the most vulnerable in society. The previous few years of Tory government saw £10 billion subsidies to the oil industry a year, while they blocked the necessary support for wind, solar and tidal power. Instead, they imposed large housing targets, fracking and social care cuts as a burden on our councils, while social inequality has extended and life expectancy has reduced. This should have been the climate election. There was more interest in the climate crisis during this election than ever before. Channel 4 hosted the leaders' climate debate, and Isle of Wight candidates were questioned at 3 specific hustings in the last few weeks, which focused on climate, sustainability and the biosphere. But the result with a Tory government and weakened opposition means our environment is threatened more than ever before. Our team of Green Volunteers were amazing. They couldn't have worked any harder these last few weeks. So a huge thank you from me to all of you for your endeavours. I'm so sorry again we lack fair representation at the Westminster level. While on average only 38,300 votes were needed to elect a single Conservative MP, the Greens achieved 864,743 in total number of votes, resulting in only one Green MP. We desperately need electoral reform.
Now we move on to White Memories, an article about Sandown Pavilion being the end of an era. The future direction of Sandown Pavilion was changed dramatically at the end of the summer of 1977. It was all down to Irish singing stars The Bachelors, John Redgrave and John Farrant. With the new demand for star names in seaside shows, John Farrant, the South White Borough's tourism and leisure chief, brought in John Redgrave, a superb producer and show director, to provide the pavilion's summer shows. The two of them decided to bring in The Bachelors for a trial week at the end of the season, and they sold out every show, which directly led to Mike and Bernie Winters coming for 6 weeks the following summer. Their huge success changed everything. In fact, at the end of that 6-week season, Mike and Bernie ended their long career at Sandown Pavilion. They both went on to enjoy successful solo careers. It was hardly surprising. Despite being a brilliant stage act together, they were not speaking to each other off stage. Jimmy Tarbuck breezed into Sandown for the 6 peak weeks of the summer of '79. Tickets were like gold dust. Tarby played to a 98% capacity for the complete run, a remarkable achievement. He came back in 1981 with the most brilliant summer show ever seen in Sandown. People still talk about the lineup that saw 30,000 visit Sandown Pavilion to see it. Supporting Jimmy were Kenny Lynch, Aidan J. Harvey, Denise Nolan, Pan's People, and the Johnny Wiltshire Orchestra. Radio 2's Pete Murray did a live open house radio show from the theatre. Jimmy Tarbuck was in his element and told many of his showbiz pals to follow him to Sandown, and it was no surprise when the likes of Norman Wisdom, Frankie Howard, Leslie Crowther, Tommy Cooper and Cilla Black took his advice. It was amazing in 1983 when Cilla came to star in the peak weeks. They parked their car near the top of the hill, and every night hundreds of people waited just to see her walk down the hill to the pavilion. That's real stardom for you. John Farrant was also very shrewd, backed by key members of his team, including Joyce Coleman, Jan Fletcher, and Jill Ringer. Later, a new producer arrived to take over from John Redgrave. Nick Thomas proved another inspired choice. He brought in Jimmy Cricket, Bernie Clifton, Charlie Williams, Matt Munro, and Bob Monkhouse. Nick Thomas is now the chairman of QDOS and is one of the most important people in British show business. And it all really began for him at Sandown Pavilion. Towards the end of the 1970s and into the 80s, many huge stars came to the venue for one-nighters. In 1978, top American singer Gene Pitney was booked. There was a queue along the seafront several hours before the tickets went on sale, and they were sold in less than 2 hours. Other top names included American country music star Billie Joe Spears, who almost cried off due to throat problems, but she did 2 sell-out shows.
David Essex proved a huge success. Peters and Lee came twice. Max Boyce did several shows, and other stars featured, including Freddie Starr, Cannon and Ball, Phil Cool, The Drifters, Vince Hill, Des O'Connor, and Max Bygraves. Bill Haley was booked for November 1980, but sadly he died before his British tour. The last big names to play summer seasons at Sandown were Les Dennis and Little and Large. In the 90s, Cornish comedian Jastrow sold out every performance and even made a video at the Pavilion. He did warn members of the audience that if they were there with someone they shouldn't be, it would be best to leave. That final decade also produced some brilliant local shows like Notre Dame, written by Islanders Anthony Wright and David Reston, and Jack Douglas also starred in Me and My Girl. There were some disappointments over the years, none more than when Lenny Henry's support act died on stage. He was a bluecoat at Pontins, Little Canada, and performed a strange act under the name of Luke Skywalker. Thankfully he got better and became Shane Ritchie. I often still tease him about that Sunday night gig. Shawaddy also blotted their copywood and changed their audience to get an earlier ferry. They were out of the theatre before the punters. There were some great funny stories, particularly when Jimmy Tarbuck was in residence. Early in the 6-week run, he had a piece of raw fish in Aidan J. Harvey's dressing room. The stench got worse and worse. He did eventually tell him in the final week. When Jimmy came for the last time in the summer of 1989, they had the serious fire, and within a few days the show was up and running, again at Shanklin Theatre. That took some work. Here's a ghost story to finish. In 1991, 2 of the stars of the summer show, John Martin and Mark Duane, saw a screaming ghost walk through the gauze and heavy safety curtain. They were terrified. It might have been Luke Skywalker still trying to escape. As I left the Sandown Pavilion on that late September night in 1998 for the very last time, I vowed never to walk on the pier again, and I haven't.
And now a warning about scams. Scams are still about. It may be winter, but that doesn't seem to stop the rogue traders and door knockers from preying on island residents. We have had reports of tree and landscaping traders knocking on doors in the Ryde area, saying they are working in the area and asking if residents need anything done. Also be wary of salespeople trying to get you to change your energy provider. We heard from one resident who told them not to call on his elderly neighbour with dementia. However, they ignored him and only left when he threatened to call the police. Trading Standards advice is never trade on the doorstep for anything. If somebody knocks on your door trying to sell you anything or carry out any work, send them away. If you do need any work done, use a reliable trader from the Trader Approval Scheme or somebody recommended by family and friends. That's one of the most important messages Isle of Wight Against Scams Partnership would like to share. Even if you're unable to keep yourself safe from unwanted traders at the door, there will be others around you who may be vulnerable. So keep an eye out for them, particularly at this time of the year. IWASP wishes all residents a scam-free Christmas.
All right, some important information about a chemist's rota. I will read it slower than normal. These chemists are open late, with changes for Christmas Day, Boxing Day and New Year's Day. Boots Pharmacy at Cowes Health Centre, 294467, Monday to Friday, 6:30 p.m. Lloyd's Pharmacy, East Cowes, 293133, Monday to Friday, 6:30 p.m, Saturday, 5 p.m. Regent Pharmacy, East Cowes, 717002, Monday 8 p.m, Tuesday to Friday 6 p.m, Saturdays 5:30 p.m. Tesco Ride 0345 026 9560, Monday to Friday 7:45, Saturday 7:30 p.m, Sunday 4 p.m. Lloyd's Pharmacy Ride 563333, Monday to Friday 6:30 p.m, Saturday noon. Sainsbury's Newport 539985, Monday to Friday 11 p.m, Saturday 10 p.m, Sunday 4 p.m. Lloyd's Pharmacy Sandown 405436, Monday to Fridays 5:30, Saturday 1 p.m. Boots Ventnor 852147, Monday to Friday 6:30 p.m. Yarmouth Pharmacy 760260, Monday 6:30 p.m, Tuesday to Wednesday 6 p.m, Thursday 6:30 p.m, Friday and Saturday 6 p.m, Sunday 4 p.m. Christmas Day, Seaview Pharmacy 613116, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. K Chemist Freshwater 752908, noon to 2 p.m. J Hoots Sandown 405436, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Boots Newport 522595, 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Boxing Day, Boots Newport 522595, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Boots Ride 562280, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sainsbury's Newport 539985, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Yarmouth Pharmacy 760260, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And finally, New Year's Day, Boots at Newport 522595, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Sainsbury's Newport 539985, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Yarmouth Pharmacy 760260, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.
It's 7 a.m. on Friday, December the 13th, and I'm sitting in my kitchen in stunned disbelief at the general election results. As a retired community psychiatric nurse, mum of 3 grown sons and grandma to a gorgeous little girl of 2.5, I can't believe the average person in this country has voted for more austerity and more defunding of the NHS, social care and social security. Heck, let's face it, all public services are going to suffer like never before. Suffer, wither and die, leaving all who voted for the party wielding the axe on the pavement, waiting 18 hours for an ambulance. That should have been 8 hours, I'm sorry. Wondering where it all went wrong. Are people blind, stupid, or just incredibly greedy? One day I might be a millionaire, so I don't want to pay a few quid extra in tax, do I? Are they simply cowed after 10 years of austerity, too frightened to stand up for themselves and their families and communities against the toffs? Has the defunding and dumbing down of our education system led to people incapable of knowing what is true and what is a lie? Has wage stagnation with people working longer and harder for less and less, with house ownership being a distant dream and managing to just get through if they're lucky, led to a mass Stockholm syndrome where the people have fallen in love with their persecutors? Has hope died? And why, in such a crucial election, when people have been suffering the effects of austerity, did more than a third of people not bother to vote at all? Those who didn't vote should hang their heads in shame. As Edmund Burke famously said, all that needs for evil to be done is for good men to stand by and do nothing. The non-voters have, in effect, allowed this to happen. Where do we go from here? Who knows? Right now there are a hell of a lot more questions than answers. What I do know, without a shadow of a doubt, that we must, as a community, hold the government to account. We must ensure our MP fulfills his promises and gets our island the support and help it needs in order to sustain us. We must make a lot of noise if he continues to be somewhat coy about meeting with or responding to his constituency. However anyone voted, he is the representative for us all, and we must stand up and hold him to account for the sake of our young, old, ill and vulnerable. So, as a lefty, it's a case of down but not out. Time to reflect, regroup and resist despair. Hold on to your hats, folks, it's going to be a bumpy ride. And that was written by Rebecca Roncoroni.
Powerboat racing returns to Cowes. The British Powerboat Racing Club have announced the dates for the 60th anniversary of the powerboat racing from Cowes. Over the bank holiday weekend of August the 29th-30, Cowes will once again host the legendary 200 miles Cow to Torquay's Cowes race, with a return to a format that includes a pit stop at Howden Pier, Torquay. Teams from around the globe will line up across the Royal Yacht Squadron, Cowes, creating a huge spectacle of modern to historic raceboats for powerboating fans. And also, round the islands 2020, the Island Sailing Club has announced next year's Round the Island race will be on May 30th. The event, one of the biggest on the global sailing calendar, has been a firm fixture since 1931, covering more than 50 nautical miles. The event attracts competitors not just from the island and the south of England, but from across the countries, Europe and further afield. Dave Atkinson, the Island Sailing Club's event director, said the date is earlier next year. The event has been a firm favourite in the sailing calendar for many, many years.
Southern Vectis has started its traditional Christmas lights tour, taking in the island's most festively decorated houses. Running nightly until Monday, the 23rd, starting at 6:30 p.m. from either Ryde or Newport bus stations, the annual tour offers spectacular views of the island at night, visiting to some of the island's best displayed. We deck out our bus with tinsel and lights and play Christmas tunes, all with Santa behind the wheel, said Southern Vectis General Manager Richard Tilsley. Our Christmas Lights Tour is the perfect festive night out for families, friends, couples, adults and children alike, a truly unique way to enjoy the island at Christmas. The 3-hour tour also stops at Rectory Mansion in Brading for hot drinks and mince pies. Southern Vectis has once again donated £250 to Terry and Sue Rampling, who always light up their home at Long Lane, Newport. The money will be spent on new lights and bulbs, while proceeds from the display will go to the White Brainy Bunch and John's Club.
We now move on to some shows at Shanklin Theatre. a spotlight group representing them. Sunday the 22nd is Aladdin, Monday the 23rd is Aladdin, Tuesday the 24th is Aladdin, and Thursday the 26th is Aladdin. They're all 2:45 shows. Then 27th is Aladdin, 2:45 and 7 o'clock. 28th is Aladdin, 2:45 and 7 o'clock. Sunday the 29th is Aladdin Relaxed Performance, 2:30. I honestly don't know what that means, sorry. Monday the 30th is Aladdin, 2:45 and 7 o'clock. Tuesday the 31st is Aladdin at 2:45. January the 1st and Thursday, January the 2nd are the same. And then the 1st of February is Michael Portello, 7:30. Friday the 7th, Jimmy Carr, 7 o'clock and 9:30. Saturday the 15th, Count Arthur Strong at 8 o'clock. Thursday the 20th, Revenge, 7:30. Friday the 21st, the same. Saturday the 22nd is the same at 2:30 and 7:30. And then finally, Friday the 28th of February is the Furies at 7:30.
The Newport Jazz Club. The next concert will see the club welcome Nett Robinson and Tony Woods at Newport's A Jolly Theatre at 3 p.m. on January the 5th. Tickets are available from Jerry Cullis on 730601 or Bill Wills on 523879.
They got Speedway returns for anxious fans. After an anxious wait, fans of the Isle of Wight Whitelink Warriors will be delighted by the news top-level Speedway will be roaring back at Smallbrook Stadium next year. This year has been a particularly successful one for Ireland Speedway, having won top club accolades for the most improved club in the National Development League and the World Speedway Riders Association's Community Club of the Year award, which they retained after winning it last year. The Warriors promotional duo of Barry Bishop and Martin Widman emerged from the reconvened National League AGM to confirm the Ireland Club will continue racing in the third tier of British Speedway alongside 6 other teams. It will be the 5th successive season under their managerial partnership.
The Isle of Wight Steam Railway has appointed a new general manager. A spokesperson for the Haven Street attraction said Steve Backhouse had been appointed to oversee the running of the railway and work with staff to build on its sustained growth and successes. Recruitment for the position started in June, and the spokesperson said there was a great deal of interest in the role. However, it was Steve's background and forward thinking that impressed the interview panel. Steve grew up just across the Solent and said he remembered the island and the steam railway fondly from family holidays. So much so he did work experience at Haven Street when he was younger. Steve said he was looking forward to moving to the island with his wife and daughter. "I'm very proud to have been appointed as General Manager of the Isle of Wight Steam Railway," he said. "I'm looking forward to working with the team, and as a member of the railway for a number of years, I'm excited to be part of this island institution."
Newport elects new councillor. Conservative Richard Hollis has been elected as the Isle of Wight councillor for Newport West following a by-election. It followed the resignation of Chris Whitehouse, who has moved off the island. Mr Hollis, the former Parkhurst Ward councillor, who lost his seat in 2017, won with 605 votes. Maria Villa-Vine, Labour, received 408 votes. Joe Lever, Green, 361. Nick Stewart, Lib Dems, 238. Stephen Reynolds, Independent, 47. And Julian Harris, Independent, 36. The turnout was 65.69%, 30% higher than the last local election. Mr Hollis said, "I'm obviously delighted to be back on the council again, so I feel like I have a lot to give, so long may it continue." Council leader, Councillor Dave Stewart, said, "The win is excellent for me because it reaffirms our view that the island is benefiting from what we are doing as the Conservative administration.
Nativity stars shine. Children across the Isle of Wight have been bringing a tear to their parents' eyes at their school nativity plays. Sunfish class at Cowes Primary School performed a traditional nativity with a Strictly Come Dancing twist, while Nettleston Primary School's younger children opted for the Inspectors. At Shalfleet Primary School, pupils performed Little Blue Star, while students at St George's School in Newport brought magic carpet rides and an explosion of colour to the party with their production of Aladdin. A community nativity was held at St Mary's Church, Carisbrooke, featuring the Carisbrooke Primary School Choir. Organiser Becky Wilson said the aim was to bring the community together to celebrate the true meaning of Christmas. It was an amazing community spirit of the children and parents that brought the nativity to life.
Give Life Not Socks. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Air Ambulance has launched Give Life Not Socks appeal this Christmas, urging islanders to forgo novelty gifts and donate money to the life-saving charity instead. Last year the air ambulance was called to 140 incidents, including 4 on Christmas Day. A spokesperson said, "For our teams of doctors, paramedics, pilots and dispatch assistants, it will be business as usual over the holiday period. We depend upon your donations."
Fixed Link campaign continues. What next for the Solent Freedom Tunnel? The profile of the Fixed Link was raised when campaigner Carl Feeney stood as an independent network candidate in the general election. His aim was to push forward his Solent Freedom Tunnel plan. However, he lost his deposit when he gained 1,542 votes, a 2.1% share. Mr Feeney said he would continue his Fixed Link campaign after taking a break following the general election. He said, "I must admit I didn't expect to become an MP, but I hadn't anticipated losing my deposit either. I had underestimated the power of 3 words, get Brexit done, repeated over and over. I do not regret my nomination at all. The main point was to use the election campaign to promote the Fixed Link campaign, and I believe it worked spectacularly well." A great many more islanders are now aware of the campaign, becoming more interested in the benefits of a Fixed Link. This campaign continues, of course. I will come back fully invigorated. He will continue to raise the £120,000 needed for the Arup viability study through public donations. The fundraising campaign was launched in September 2018 and has raised £21,500. Islander MP Bob Seeley is not in favour of a Fixed Link. He said, "It's a red herring. There's no government money for it. It's not viable with private funds." Stuart Brown of the No Fixed Link group has scrapped his campaign following the election loss. He claimed victory in the fight against the Fixed Link.
An awards ceremony at Military Preparation College provided a platform for students aged between 16 and 18 to demonstrate team bonding, fitness and public speaking skills in front of assembled guests. Excuse me. The college, run under the umbrella of the Motivational Preparation College for Training, undertook a day of practical displays, including precision marching, physical training routine, field gun competition and a tug of war. The college is based at the Sixth Form Centre at Ryde Academy and has been in operation since 2012. Its predominant purpose is to enhance skills and improve fitness levels for young people with aspirations to join the armed forces in the future. Some simply join the course to learn life skills such as getting into a regular routine, punctuality, personal presentation and gaining valuable employability skills for a future career. Students typically stay at the college for up to 2 years, often leaving to join the military before the end of their tenure. The courses run 5 days a week, starting each day with a kit parade. It includes a BTEC in work skills at level 2 and a daily fitness training programme. Instructors are former Armed Forces personnel from the Royal Naval Physical Training Branch and the Royal Marine Commandos. Brian Richardson, the centre manager, said, "Parents notice the difference within a few weeks of their children coming, whether it's with their confidence, attitude or healthy lifestyle. They become better citizens and make the transition from school child to young, motivated adults."
The Hunt Forest Group, based in Rookley, has won an award for the best trade stand at the 2019 Royal Isle of Wight County Show. County Show Chairman Graham Biss said, "Alongside the overall growth of the show, the retail offering continues to expand both in size and quality. The Hunt Forest Group stand this year was an exceptional and has set an extremely high standard for others to match. We are very grateful to all our traders who helped to make the show a full and varied day out." Jim Reed, Isle of Wight branch manager of the Hunt Forest Group, said, "We are delighted to receive the prestigious award of Best Trade Stand and enjoyed a very busy weekend with visitors from all over the country. We look forward to this show every year and love helping the event to grow and seeing it develop. The business exhibits every year and supported the event this year by loaning a Gator XUV 8X5M for moving equipment, transporting VIP visitors and helping with the breakdown of the site. As the long-established John Deere tractor dealer for the Isle of Wight, formerly called R Hunt, its team has vast knowledge in parts, sales and service of agricultural, homeowner, equestrian and construction equipment. It also has a showroom with tools and JD merchandise."
Care for autistic hover passengers. Hover Travel has expanded its training scheme to help staff accommodate passengers on the autistic spectrum. As part of its Hover Care initiative, Hover Travel invited specialist David Boxall to train its staff in understanding autism. The company has also held a Try Before You Fly event to offer advice to passengers on the autistic spectrum. Mr. Boxall said, "Specialising in autism and anxiety, I was keen to share the enormous difference it can make to Hover Travel's customers when staff become more aware of the psychological and physiological impact of anxiety. Hover Travel has already provided safe spaces in ear defenders and training to cashiers, crews and pilots." Loretta Lale, head of company commercial at Hover Travel, said, "We wanted to build on our current work, which has been so well received, and develop a deeper understanding of autism and the principles of supporting individuals to offer best possible experience with Hover Travel."
The Star Inn at Wroxall has started its designated driver campaign. Any designated driver can claim buy one get one free on Coke draft drinks, plus 50% off alcohol-free beer and wine. The pub started the campaign to make sure someone can drive their friends home safely.
A car hit a tree at Wilmington Lane, Yarmouth at around 8:30 a.m. on Monday. A police spokesperson said no other vehicles were involved and no injuries were reported. Cars have been diverted along the road during the Yarmouth Bridge closure.
Greenmount Primary School ride was closed last Thursday after a heating system broke down. Children were sent home while the problem was investigated as there was no heating or hot water. The preschool was unaffected.
Christmas ferries. Red Funnel has published its Christmas Day timetable. The car ferry will depart from Southampton at 9 a.m. and noon and return from East Cowes at 10:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m.
Hover Travel has published its Christmas timetable. The last crossing will be at 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve from Southsea. There will be no service on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. On New Year's Eve, the last departures will be at 6:45 p.m. from Ryde and 7 p.m. from Southsea. Services will resume on New Year's Day at 9:15 a.m. from Ryde.
New boss at Tesco Extra. Tesco Extra Ryde has a new store manager. John Roberts, who's been with the company for 34 years, moved from the Winchester store to Ryde on November the 22nd. He said, "I'm here to ensure our customers continue receiving the best experience and value when shopping in our store, and that our very successful work on the island supporting community and charity groups grows in 2020.
The seawall at Fort Victoria has been repaired in time for the Christmas holidays. A section of seawall was breached recently, opening up a sinkhole beneath the concrete walkway which collapsed. The area was cordoned off while repairs could be undertaken. The Isle of Wight Council said, "The seawall has been repaired in time for the Christmas holidays, when this popular park is usually busy."
Pub fire. A fire broke out in the roof space of the Stag Inn Lake last Friday. 4 crews dealt with a fire from Sandown, Shanklin, Ryde and Newport after the 999 call was received at 11:33 a.m. The fire was out within an hour. The pub is situated on the Lake High Street and Newport Road junction.
A man was airlifted to Southampton General Hospital with serious head injuries after he was hit by a car in Binstead. Binstead Road was closed for around 5 hours following the crash, involving a 54-year-old male pedestrian and a Volkswagen Golf, shortly after 4:30 p.m. on Sunday while police carried out inquiries. A police spokesperson said, "If you saw the collision or have dashcam footage from the area in the minutes before the collision, please contact us on 101, quoting 44190 450354.
And it's goodbye from Paul, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
And exactly the same from Linda. Bye.
Message read on behalf of Miriam Tong, CEO. Dear all, Stakeholder Consultation Meeting, 11th of February 2020, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Newport venue to be confirmed. Side for Wight is inviting visually impaired members, volunteers and stakeholders to a consultation meeting that will inform the future direction of our charity. The meeting will include discussions on our mission and options for future programmes and operations. Site for Wight trustees are meeting in January to narrow down what we think is feasible for us to achieve, and we will share these reflections and options at the consultation meeting. For practical reasons, the total number of participants at the consultation meeting is limited to around 40. This means that, in addition to trustees, employees and guarantor members, we are limited to involving a further 10 visually impaired members and 10 volunteers. If you would like to attend on the 11th of February, please let us know by email, letter or telephone by 4th of February at the latest. To afford an equal opportunity to every visually impaired member and volunteer interested in attending, if we are oversubscribed, names will be drawn from a hat. Further details of the meeting will then be sent out accordingly, including any assistance with transport for visually impaired members we are able to offer, which may be limited to providing a sighted guide escort service from Newport bus station to the meeting venue. If you are unable to attend, you will still be able to input into these important discussions. If you would like to make any suggestions or observations for consideration whether or not you are able or hope to attend in person, please let us have your reflections by the 4th of February at the latest, again by email, letter or telephone. Please ensure emails are sent to enquiries@iwsb.org.uk. Please mark emails or letters with consultation meeting in the title so we can readily identify them. For those wishing to contribute by telephone, Member Services Assistant Sue Young will be manning the phones for this purpose on Tuesday the 28th of January from 9:30am to 3pm and again on Tuesday the 4th of February from 9:30am to 3pm. We will subsequently share recommendations from the consultation meeting via our weekly Talking News service and our quarterly newsletter. In the meantime, may I take this opportunity on behalf of everyone at Sight for White to wish you a joyous festive season. Yours sincerely, Miriam Tong, CEO.
Christmas Joy by Ben Fry, read by Melvin Hayes. Snow is falling. Chapter 1. I woke up, still half asleep. I heard the most beautiful sound, snow gently falling. As quickly as I could, I got out and let the frost calm my ears. I could hear that Christmas was coming. Not ear-splitting screaming noises. I could feel and hear the Christmas carols going round houses one by one. It was beautiful. This is what snow is all about. Present opening, Chapter 2. I could not wait for the joy of the kids opening their presents. It was time. I could hear the unwrapping of the presents. Candles were getting lit. Parents were crying with joy. The joy of everyone filled with love and warmth. Bells are ringing. Chapter 3. It was Christmas Day, the very best day of the year. Everyone was up early, and I could hear the bells knocking against each other. I could hear everything to do with Christmas. The bells were like music like no other. It was beautiful, and candles were bringing warmth to my soul. The end. Christmas Present by Adam Kirby, aged 6. Read by Melvin Hayes. One night, Sophie still had her Halloween decorations up. She took them to the attic. She was very excited because it was nearly Christmas Eve. On Christmas Day, there were presents. They had a message on them. They said, "To Sophie, from Santa." And Sophie put up her Christmas decorations. And Sophie was grown up. Then Sophie saw a green spotty horse. The end.
The Sound of Christmas by Ella Brer, read by Kate Weston. About a week ago, I was lifted out of my resting place and put up to my new home. It's always a tad uncomfortable to begin with, but you get used to it. So far, not much has happened. I heard the sound of a choir singing on Sunday morning, but then nothing since. It's quiet here and cold, but there's a glow I can feel, and it keeps me warm. I spend most of my life in darkness, not seeing or hearing anything at all, just a big, thick cloak of darkness. But at least it's comfortable. On Monday, the air was ringing with people, talking, drinking and cheering. It must have been a very special occasion because there were so many voices. The smell and sounds of Christmas filled the air. Gingerbread, mulled wine and sweet-smelling candles, clinking glasses, teetering teacups on saucers, and the occasional nose being blown. Children running around and giggling always makes me feel nervous, and I feel like I'm suddenly swaying. In comes the man with the deep voice, bang on cue, cheerfully booming his ho ho ho. He speaks softly to each child, and they squeal happily. "Don't open it now," say the parents. The children then whinge and the parents give in. It's the same story every year. Soon after, a loud voice fills the room, and the familiar creaks echo around as everyone sits down. Their singing brings back memories. This has happened before. A week later, the same happens again, but it's different this time. This time there is no sweet smell. Yes, the warm fuzzy smell of wine, but it's not the Christmas smell. Then there's a loud noise and everyone cheers. Children begin to wail because the noise is so loud. The pops and bangs tell me it's almost time to go back to my resting place. A day later, after the singing, about 3 people stayed on after the crowds left. I recognised one of the voices. It was the loud voice that shouted so loudly a few days ago. The place I was standing on shook and rustled. I was so scared and frightened and... Suddenly, I woke up. I felt hands holding me gently. A voice spoke then. It was soft and kind. "Look, the angel has no eyes, poor thing. I wonder how long they've been missing for. Must have fallen off in the box. I'll take her home and put some new ones on." Then there was a rustling sound and I was laid to rest on a soft blanket of tissue and put somewhere without any glow. It smelt of lavender and toffees. I must have drifted off until I was awoken by the same kind voice. There, her eyes are back now. She can see again. Not sure how long they'll stay put for, though. She won't need them for another year anyway. I opened my eyes and finally saw everything. I could see the woman's house and her smiling face and light and colour. But all too soon, things went dark again. I was lifted out of my resting place and onto my new home. There I was, an angel on a Christmas tree, looking down into the church below me, seeing all the colours and happy faces of the children, Santa and the fireworks, things I had only heard, smelt and imagined last year. It was utterly beautiful. But, on the other hand, you don't have to have eyes to feel the magic of Christmas. And anyway, who needs a pair of eyes when you have a pair of sparkly wings? The end. Merry Christmas.
In the Blink of an Eye by Dr. Marguerite Howick. Read by Adana Minghella. If she had known she was going to lose her sight, she would never have bought the glass-topped coffee table. How many more times was she going to walk into the corners of that glass top and gouge lumps out of her legs? She had asked for corner protectors at the local hardware shop, only for the assistant to inquire, "For a child?" Waspishly she had replied, "Yes, me." That summed it up. She did feel like a child, vulnerable. Last Christmas she had woken up with no effective vision whatsoever in her left eye, all wobble and ripple around a dark mass. Just like that. No warning. Or was that strictly true? Hadn't she found herself swatting what she thought was a large black fly away from that side of her face a couple of times? First stop after the New Year had been the optician's. Nothing can be done, really. Macular hole. In severely short-sighted people from birth, the retina is thin. Vitreous gel dries out, sticks to retina, tugs a hole. This is as good as it gets. Gradual deterioration. Right eye will go the same way. We will refer you to a specialist, but... What a shock. Nothing could be done? It was her age, really? She still felt 23. Well, perhaps 27 certain days, but 66? Surely that wasn't old. And she can't have been destined to live the rest of her life groping blindly around a world, parts of which were still waiting for her to explore. A crescendo of anxiety. Oh, she really hadn't seen this coming. And yet she had studied the scans. Right eye okay, left eye a car crash. So she had taken a deep breath and got on with it. She had months to wait for the hospital appointment, and after checking with them that she had time, she set off on all her planned travels abroad. She had to get her head around all of this, and the distance would offer her some perspective. Luckily it did. That defining moment in March, when she had just arrived in Hong Kong, embarked a ship, and then, jet-lagged and hot, panicking about the future, had stumbled into one of the on-board theatres, not caring what was showing, just wanting the womb-like darkness to wrap itself around her as a comfort blanket. She hadn't even noticed the young Hungarian musician walk onto stage and wordlessly pick up his instrument until, oh, that first sound, such a haunting melody that tore her apart. Astor Piazzolla's Oblivion, an Argentinian tango of such sensual passion that her tears had fallen unnoticed. The realization that to have been able to see him clearly but not hear the sounds he was making, not hear the music, now that would have been devastating. That would have been far worse. So after all these months of fretful torment, she breathed again. That small voice of calm was balm to her soul, and the world was a kinder place again. She might be going to lose her sight, but there were worse scenarios, and everything really would be all right. And as her voyage continued, was it her imagination, or hadn't her hearing become more acute? Was it overcompensating for the depletion of the other sense? Hadn't she heard that soft step of the orangutan in the Malaysian sanctuary just before she emerged from behind the trees, proudly presenting the baby she had adopted after her own had died in a forest fire? Hadn't she detected the snap of the broken twig in the Alaskan forest a few seconds before they turned to see the enormous brown bear crashing through the bushes? Hadn't the pop of one bubble on the surface of the water at Icy Strait Point alerted her a heartbeat before the sea appeared to boil as 6 or 7 bubble-netting whales sent all the fish floating to the top for a manic feeding frenzy? She was reconciled now to the future. And so when finally the day came to meet the consultant at the eye clinic, she burst in upon him, full of renewed vigour, wanting to reassure him that she was a woman of the millennium and completely understood there was nothing he could do for her and that she was at peace with that. A gentle smile, kind eyes, and a pleasing, mellifluous voice. His first words: "I can offer you the chance to see again. I can operate. This is my specialism." One of those moments when you know your life will never be the same again. Those weeks waiting for the operation seemed endless, and she had planned her overnight stay, like a sleepover, packing new slippers, luxurious toiletries, and gifts and cards for the consultant and his nurse. She didn't want to be just an eyeball to them. And afterwards, after the general anaesthetic, more scans, more tests. There was more damage to the retina than we thought. I am pleased with how it looks at this stage, but try not to get an infection. If you see a dark shadow, the gas bubbles will go. How many other poor souls had sat where she sat, hearing but not really listening? Then released to fresh air and a world that could not comprehend how they were feeling, accompanied by an all-consuming terror and 2 bottles of eye drops to see them through. She had entered the hospital with poor sight, but now had nothing. It was all blur, fog, restless movement, dancing images. It was so very frightening. What if this were it? What if she never saw anything ever again in this eye, and then the other eye went? How would she cope? How would she live alone? Would she ever be able to draw again? How could she be herself? And the most important question, when could she wear mascara? Positioning was important, and so she lay or sat with her head down for hours, eyes closed, ears strained to pick up the sounds of lives carrying on outside, regardless of her plight. She would allow herself a break every hour to make a cup of tea, but naturally had not factored in clearing up the resultant mess. It helps when pouring scalding water from a kettle to a cup if you do not misjudge the distance between the two by at least 6 inches. She had knitted 7 baby blankets, dropping stitches and undoing each one before starting again. Used tweezers to pluck a stray whisker from her face, but her hand had slipped and she had almost poked the eye out. Attempted a Sudoku puzzle, unwittingly using a wax earplug instead of an eraser, wondering why the pencil mark was not disappearing, and had tried to text a message using the TV remote control. There's always a silver lining, and after one appointment she had luxuriated in a double seat on the overcrowded bus all to herself. A few tears had been shed walking to the bus stop, and she was oblivious to the fact that she had flushed out the thick orange eye drops. The desiccated remains were caked on her cheekbone, so she appeared to be in the early stages of leprosy. No wonder the paying bus customers stayed well clear. Sight had to be the most precious of all senses. So why was it never until you had lost something that you appreciated how valuable it had been? How on earth did blind people cope? This was offering her an entirely different perspective on their condition, and she was full of admiration for them, because she was already ragged with frustration, and her physical demeanour had changed drastically. No longer walking tall, but bowed, a little hunched, diminished, looking downwards at the pavement, moving slowly, carefully, misjudging the distances, and flinching when others came close. One stranger had merely brought his mobile phone to his ear as he walked past her, but that sudden movement at the edge of her limited peripheral vision had caused her to duck. She thought he was about to strike her. Poor man had looked so apologetic. Then there was the received wisdom of others. At least you still got your own teeth. There's always someone worse off than you. I knew someone with a macular hole went blind. My vitreous humour detached. I thought I had been watching a flock of crows. Thanks to that last comment, every time she saw black birds in the sky, she assumed the moment of total retinal collapse was upon her. Sometimes it really is a flock of crows. Finally, the day arrived when the gas bubbles had gone and the last procedure was imminent. I will just laser off the scar tissue from the implant. There is a risk of retinal detachment, but it may not make a noticeable difference. There's no more I can do for the retina or the implant. It will never be the same as it was. And it was nearly Christmas again. Almost a year since this nightmare had begun. The journey was nearly over, and this man had done everything in his power to help her see as well as could be expected again. He had probed, repaired, fine-tuned this left organ, and now the moment of truth. She would again leave the hospital with impaired vision, but by the next morning she would know what she was left with. She travelled home on the bus with eyes closed, as if she were just resting them, and listened to the chitter, chatter and burbling of the other passengers. Which Christmas gifts were left to buy? How difficult it was to know what to get Uncle David. Whether it was best to prepare the vegetables the night before, and creative ways to use the leftovers on Boxing Day. It all washed over her in an inconsequential wave. Finally, the next morning, and in her first waking moment, she did not dare open her eyes. She felt her way through to the living room, and only then would she lift her lids and blink. Elsewhere that Christmas, bells might be pealing, choristers singing, and children squealing, but the only discernible sound here was the gentle intake of breath from a woman who, after a tortuously long year, was beginning to see something again. An image was emerging, crystallizing, and the edges were sharpening. It was the most incredibly beautiful glass-topped coffee table.
Silent Nights by Roy Perry, read by Michael Maloney. Alan Wilberforce Ward had learnt about hang gliding when on holiday with his parents at Rossilly at the end of the Gower Peninsula in West Glamorgan, Wales. After a few days, he had become skillful enough to ride the wind and swoop about 100 metres outside the windows of the hotel room, much to the surprise of his parents. Back home, the family considered the lad's future. "What would you most like to do?" asked his mother. "I would love to be a spy in the sky," was the reply. "You've been watching too many James Bond movies," said his father. Alan decided to enlist in the British Army. After some tough square bashing, he was selected for advanced parachute training. He also qualified as a pilot of a single-engined aircraft on a course similar to that for a private pilot's license. He was recruited to an elite special forces unit operating against the Taliban in Afghanistan, and had perfected a method of silently approaching a target to report the status of the opposition. On his second tour of duty, he was scouting enemy sites in Baglan province, soaring in a special hang glider above a wild river, when he was suddenly aware of the zing-wee of high-velocity rifle rounds. He desperately tried to manoeuvre away as the shells passed close by. A round found its target with a zing thud. He had been hit in the right thigh. Still able to maintain height, he did his best to put distance between himself and his attacker. After a few minutes, he realized that he was losing height. Perhaps a round had deflated the wing. Soon he felt long grass and was able to put down on the riverbank. He hurriedly dialed in his coordinates and felt his thigh. It felt serious. Looking back, he could still see Tracer arcing into the sky, probing for him, but moving away. 30 minutes later, the whoop-whoop of helicopter blades was heard, and soon a Wessex machine was hovering over him. A man descended on a line and gathered up Alan with his craft and all the kit before raising it to the wide-open door. They sped off low and fast. His wounds were treated at a camp medical centre, and then in a Kabul hospital. Plastered from hip to toe, he was flown back to the UK. He arrived back at his parents' home in East Cowes just before Christmas. The family went for a meal at the Hare and Hounds, Down End, on December the 22nd. During the meal, amid the happy snap of crackers and cameras, he heard the unmistakable sound of a Salvation Army band and singers. They entered the premises. Alan said to his dad, "There is nothing quite so evocative at Christmas than this sound." He became aware of a very pretty girl who was collecting funds. Boldly, he said, "Why are you not singing?" She croaked back, "Laryngitis." Completely smitten, Alan wrote a quick note asking for a date. To his total surprise, she nodded and wrote a phone number and her name. Alice. "I'm in the army," he stuttered. "So am I," she mumbled, waving her tambourine. He had been experiencing flashbacks and was diagnosed as suffering with PTSD. Alan spent a long leave receiving treatment. During this time, he met Alice's family, proposed marriage, and was accepted. The pair were wed in October and set up home in rented accommodation on the island. Soon, Alice was expecting their first child. As part of his treatment, he had been advised to get back in the air, first in an aircraft. He was contacted by the Hampshire Constabulary, who were looking for pilots who could undertake surveillance missions over streets busy with revellers at night. A new aircraft was to be tested. The Edgeley Optica was powered by a ducted fan engine. Its fully glazed nose was like that of a helicopter. The machine could act as an aerial observation post and was equipped with infrared cameras and a powerful searchlight. Alan and a colleague flew undetected over Newport, Ryde and Shanklin during the pre-Christmas period, linked by radio to police on the ground. Sensitive microphones on the craft picked up festive music and groups of carol singers. They flew silently above the town, then moved over an industrial estate, and were astonished to view a group of men hurriedly bundling TVs, printers and PCs into a white van. The searchlight lit up the scene, and a loudspeaker boomed out, "Stop where you are and lay on the ground!" The crooks were so astonished that they meekly surrendered to the officers on the ground. Alan was pleased to have proved the system and spent a lovely time with family and friends. Church bells rang out to welcome them to the Minster for a service of 9 lessons and carols. Children caroused in delight on finding a layer of snow which dampened their footfall after the service. Fully recovered from his injuries, he returned to his unit. They were tasked to carry out surveillance missions against rebels in an African state. Alan's equipment consisted of a blacked-out hang glider with him suspended below. He was able to take advantage of the steady wind which blew towards the cliffs and could fly back and forth alongside them for long periods. They were to seek and destroy 2 groups who were sheltering outside their cave homes one moonless night. The rebels were gathered round a fire on a plateau outside the cave eating a meal when Alan and his colleagues struck. Silently gliding towards the scene, they launched a series of phosphor grenades into the caves. The insurgents fled down trails into the jungle but were captured by local ground forces. The brightly lit scene reminded Alan of fireworks night and Christmas lights. After his tour of service, he returned to his home but was soon approached by the commander of the local Coast Guard unit. The man knew of Alan's special skills and asked him to help with a problem that was becoming increasingly serious: drug trafficking. It appeared that a group of well-organised smugglers were planning to take advantage of the festive season to land a haul of contraband somewhere along Sandown Bay. These operations had been observed on moonless nights when confusion was caused by a few gaily lit private boats which cruised offshore, adding to the illuminated spectacle on the land. Alan accepted the task and requested that his special hang glider be made available to the Coast Guard. The request was eventually, and rather grudgingly, approved, and a secret special base was set up on the cliff at Lake. Extra equipment in the form of a throat mic, infrared scanner were added. The first night with no moon was perfect for a test flight. Alan launched himself off the cliff and was able to stay aloft for a couple of hours as he flew silently and undetectable down to Luckham Headland and back. It was December the 23rd, and he was amazed at the sight and sounds made by revellers on the esplanade, in the streets, and he could even hear carolers as they stood in the cold awaiting some remuneration. "O little town of Bethlehem" could easily be heard. The next night was also moonless, and he received a message from the Coast Guard that a ship had moored 1 mile out to sea opposite Shanklin. It was only displaying small navigation lights. Shortly after midnight, Alan was launched from Lake Cliffs and was able to fly noiselessly down the coastline to the south. He was kept in constant radio touch with a controller. At about 2:30 a.m, he was warned that 2 small inflatables had been launched from the moored ship. Time for action. Alan ghosted down towards Shanklin Chine, at the bottom of which stood the appropriately named thatch-roofed Smuggler's Inn. He turned on his infrared detector and soon picked out 2 objects speeding towards the shore. He quietly raised the alarm and noted with pleasure that Coast Guard and police units were stationed in the inn, in nearby beach huts, and on the cliff top. Alan hovered over the intruders as they beached the dinghies, then pressed a switch which operated the spotlight to illuminate the scene. The crooks were quickly rounded up and arrested. The drug haul was of high-quality cocaine. In a parallel operation, officers on a Coast Guard cutter detained the mothership before he could escape. Alan found that the wind had picked up and become more turbulent, so he headed for a landing point on the Shanklin cliff top. Alan was tired and cold. He peered ahead and spied a ghostly image. The sound of jingle bells filled the air. He made out the shape of a sleigh loaded with gifts on which sat a white-bearded man in a red coat. It was apparently drawn by a reindeer. Can it be true? Was it really Santa? Suddenly, a gust caught his fragile craft, which collided with the tower of the cliff lift and was sent spinning down into the car park. For Alan, the lights had gone out. The off-duty policeman with his pony and sleigh was shocked by the dark apparition which had swept in, but he made a call for help. Alan had been protected by his helmet and the padded bag round his body. Rescue was soon at hand, and he was carefully released, placed on a special stretcher, and conveyed by ambulance to St. Mary's Hospital. He had not suffered any major injury, but remained unconscious until midday on December the 25th. He opened his eyes, saw his wife and children gathered by his bed. A choir had entered the ward and was singing "Hark the Herald Angels." "What's that noise?" he asked. "It's the sound of Christmas," came the happy reply. Thus ended the final surveillance task for Alan. Back home he found a message from the army. He was to be pensioned off, as his tasks were to be replaced by a drone.
I'm at the Sight for White Awards evening for the Christmas short story competition, and I'm talking to one of the famous voices that recorded the stories this year, the one and only Melvin Hayes. Good evening.
Hello there, hello. You got the name right. That was good. I mean, the thing is that over the years, people have got my name mixed up. I did it once years ago. Do you remember a thing called Countdown on the well, I did about 30 of those, and I remember that the warm-up man, whose job it was to introduce you to the public and everything, he used to give me a wonderful introduction, a bit like yours really, and this particular week he wasn't there. I got there and there was a guy, I had no idea who he was. This is a true story, I promise you. And he said to me, "I'm so thrilled to meet you. I'm one of your biggest fans. I've seen all your televisions, all your films with Cliff and all that sort of stuff." He said, "And I can't wait to introduce you." He said, "I'm going to give you such a build-up." And he went, I said, "Ladies and gentlemen," to the studio audience, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "we've got an icon, a man who's born through show business in his blood. It's fantastic. And I'm so thrilled to introduce you tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Mr. Mervyn Hughes."
You were kind enough to record the voices this year and last year.
Yeah, it's very exciting to come along and do something like that, because the work that all these people put in is fabulous. And I did them, I think this is the third year I've done them. I get very nervous because you want to make sure that the person's story really comes over. And it was lovely because tonight when I read the little 6-year-old story, suddenly from nowhere there was a line right at the end which was, "And then I saw a green-spotted horse." And he got a big laugh, and I thought, that's good. And if he's listening, I hope he's going to appreciate how clever he is and go on and write lots more.
It was excellent. It made me laugh when I heard it as well, that this line came from nowhere.
From nowhere, absolutely nowhere. But some of the other stories were lovely, and it was a pleasure to be part of this evening.
What do you think of the standard of the stories that have been written that you've heard so far this evening?
Oh, they're very good. I mean, the point is, I don't think people realise about writing. It ain't easy. I've been writing my book now for 35 years. I started when I first met my wife Jane, and I'm now up to the year 1970. But I'm only taking it up to 1980 because I don't think it will last that long. I've worked it out. If I brought it up to the present day, I'd have to live to be 350 years old, and that's impossible.
I don't think anybody's going to make it that old.
No, I don't think so. But the thing is that the only reason I'm writing it, basically, is because one day, when I'm gone, when I'm dead and buried long time after, my children will say, "That's what Daddy did. He used to go away and we never knew what he was doing. Sometimes we saw him dressed up as a lady, but this book will explain it all."
Well, at least there's something for your children to understand what you did.
Yeah. The title I've got so far it's the best title I've come up with is "It Ain't Half Taken Me a Long Time to Write This Book, Mum." And that's about it, really.
Well, that's great. I'm pleased you come along this evening. It's nice to see you. You are one of our island celebrities. It's always nice to see you in action.
Thank you very much. I should explain to the people, you can't see this, but I've got a beard on. And the reason I've got this beard, people think I haven't shaved. I'm doing a film up in Scotland, and I'm playing a biblical character, so I thought the beard would help. The only trouble is, I was due to go up last week to film my first scene, and they told me, don't bother to come up, because in Aberdeen and further north, it gets dark at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so we're leaving it till after Christmas. And I've got this silly beard, so I've got myself another job. If you go to Lidl's, you'll see me as Father Christmas.
Yes, I think you pass quite regularly for Father Christmas.
It's terrible, yeah. But isn't it? I can't believe we're 2 weeks from Christmas now. I don't know when this goes out, when this interview goes.
Probably tomorrow.
But tomorrow, well, happy Christmas to everybody and all the very best for the next year, for the new year. We won't talk about that other thing that's happening in a couple of days' time, because I'm not going to talk about that.
Thank you very much, Melvin, and we'll see you again at Vectis Radio sometime soon, hopefully.
Look forward, and thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Good evening. Does the thought of wrapping your presents fill you with dread? It does me. First one I tried to send my mum a box of chocolates. All she got was the box. So I'm putting myself in the hands of someone who knows how. And going all out on festive fashion. How to look the part and feel it too. Also, bon voyage to producer Lee Kumatat. Explanations later. But first, with last week's election still fresh in our minds, how did voting go for you? We asked you to tell us what happened to you. Listener Andrew Patterson did that. He found the process fairly straightforward until, that is, last Thursday.
In the past, I've never really had any major issues voting. I turn up with the guide dog, so it's quite obvious I'm visually impaired, and the staff at the polling station follow the protocol of attaching the templates to the ballot paper and standing at a respectful distance. They read out the list of parties, I put my cross in the relevant gap on the paper and drop it into the box. Democracy done. My decision is equal to anyone else in society. This time, I was presented with a template which had half of it missing, and it was attached to the wrong side of the ballot paper, the left side. The template didn't have any of the outlines of the boxes on, just the spine down one side and the flaps on. I pointed out that it was attached to the wrong side of the ballot paper, but the official refused to move it, saying this is the way he has been told to do it. As I disagreed with him, there was a large queue forming. Eventually, I had to improvise by folding the ballot paper to try and line it up with the flaps on the wrong side, and then asked the official if I had my pencil on the box. After voting, I wasn't sure if I'd marked the candidate I wanted, or if I'd spoiled my ballot, and there was definitely no privacy.
So all the frustrations that many of you have told us about. Well, we do plan to keep reporting on whether and how progress is made in the provision of accessible voting, given that the court did find the current method unlawful. So look out for more about that in the new year. Although it won't be the job of producer Lee Kumatat to follow it up. Well, Lee is leaving the BBC at the end of this week. No, she hasn't been fired. She's had an offer she couldn't refuse. But it took me back. She came into a studio over 10 years ago to answer my questions on her impressions as an Australian who had moved to London virtually on her own. Well, in that interview, she raved about how fantastically easy it was travelling on the London Underground. And realising we had a broadcasting talent on our hands, I suggested that she do a piece on it for us.
Down in King's Cross Underground Station, I started by asking a member of staff, Isaac Knates, just how it all works. What, for example, would happen if I came to the barrier and needed assistance?
We would not assume people need help. We would not also assume as well they don't need help. We would not be patronising, but we would approach the person and offer as much help as we can.
Of course, the staff would be used to interacting with visually impaired people at King's Cross with the RNIB close by, but with 6,500 platform staff, how does the London Underground keep tabs on whether the same level of service is maintained across its network? I asked Wayne Trevor, Accessibility and Inclusion Manager.
We work directly with people themselves and organisations that represent people like the RNIB to make sure we say to the individuals and the members, how is this working for you? Are you getting the sort of service that you expect? But what we also have is a more structured way of gathering that feedback in the form of a mystery shopping survey. So we employ disabled people, some of whom are blind or have a visual impairment, and they make real journeys testing our staff out on the system, encountering difficulties like service disruptions and seeing how our staff respond.
And now I'm off to apply for one of those mystery shopper jobs.
And indeed, she had another job because it wasn't very long before she was producing as well as reporting. Now, it's crunch time. I have a present here somewhere. Here it is. It needs wrapping and I haven't got the faintest idea where to start. If the store had had a service, I certainly would have used that, but they didn't. And the person I've bought this for won't appreciate it sitting under the Christmas tree in a bag for life. So I've called for the cavalry in the form of Emma Williams. Emma is herself blind. She's a mum of a 10-year-old and has recently started teaching daily living skills to visually impaired students at New College, Worcester. So, Emma, this is a daily living skill. Well, at least it's once a year for me. I've got a roll of wrapping paper and some scissors. I may not need them. It depends what you suggest. Get me started, will you?
If you hold the roll of paper in one hand, okay, and start unrolling, making sure that the roll is on the top rather than underneath, if you get what I mean.
Oh, right, because presumably the danger then is that you will take your hand away and the whole lot will unwrap.
It might do, but also you might be in danger of wrapping the present with the pattern on the inside and the white side on the outside.
Oh, I see. Yes, it's very visual, this wrapping paper stuff.
Well, it can and it can't be. Sometimes you can buy wrapping paper that's slightly textured and then you will have a bit more of an idea of which side is which.
OK, so I've got that. I've got it in the right position. What else?
OK, you need to place your present on the paper and you need to be thinking about the width of paper that you need.
It's about 3 inches wide and about 8 inches long. Something like that. The present, that is.
OK, so I would probably turn it the other way around so that it's kind of long ways in front of you from left to right.
OK. There's not much room on this table.
Okay. This could be interesting then.
Yeah.
So you need about a couple of inches on either side, on each end of the present.
Okay.
So can you sort of feel with your finger, if you unroll enough paper, you might be able to feel with your finger sort of.
I think I might have a bit too much, actually. Can I roll it back again?
Of course.
Yeah, OK. Let me do that. Yeah,
okay.
That's better.
Okay.
OK.
So, now where your finger is marking, OK, you then need to fold the paper.
This is where it all goes horribly wrong.
Well, it can do. So you might want to take the present off.
Yeah.
OK. Then you would fold it to where your finger is.
Oh, I see.
And then to make sure that it's straight, so you're going to get a right angle, you want to use the bottom and the top edges and make sure that they're aligned.
I tell you what, let me stop you. I'm already getting a bit lost. While I'm doing this, because we may be here for some time, also in the studio with me is Fern Lulham, our festive fashion correspondent, our pre-Christmas programme. Fern's been trawling the stores and online for some of this year's most accessible audio and tactile fashion. Fern, Helen, where are you going to start?
Well, Peter, this year, party fashion is all about making a dramatic entrance, which I certainly did when I entered the BBC this morning.
You were very noisy.
I was very jingly, but we'll get onto that in a minute.
Okay.
That means colour, sparkle and texture, which is good news for visually impaired ladies and gents. The great thing is that all the catwalk trends are available at affordable prices in the high street. Even the low-cost stores have their own versions of runway fashion. This year there's a lot of sequins and sparkly skirts on offer, ranging from all your favourite rainbow colours to subtle black skirts with silver little tweaks in the weave there. So these are perfect. These skirts that I'm talking about with the flecks of silver, they're perfect from going to the office to your Christmas party.
Why do you think particularly at Christmas, more than at any other time, visually impaired people have got more freedom with fashion?
Well, I think a big part of it is the texture. I mean, we're quite out there, some of us visually impaired ladies, especially myself. And I love all of the satin, the fur, the suede, the velvet. There's so many different textures. And today, I am wearing a fully fledged elf outfit.
There are going to be pictures online. Can you describe it?
The boots are Santa boots. Somebody asked me earlier if I'd actually stolen them off the big man himself. They're suede red boots with white fur tops. Then I've got red tights. I've got an elf jumper dress, which is green in the middle and red and white stripes on the sleeves. Traditional elf dress with bells hanging off it. And a matching hat.
Let's hear you.
I mean, how much fun is this?
Emma, you impressed?
Oh, come on, Emma.
Well, I tell you what, Emma, we didn't get you in to talk about that. We did get you to do the wrapping. I don't think I'm doing too bad here. I've got it. Look, this is presumably where the sellotape comes in, is it?
So we've got the paper cut.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we want to put our present on the bottom edge of the paper. And what I would do is I would lift up the paper with the present and I would roll the paper round the present as many times as it will go.
Oh, okay. It's a bit of a mess, Emma, I'm afraid.
I would try and keep it tight and just roll the present up the paper whilst keeping hold of the paper.
Something's fallen on the floor. I'm not quite sure what.
Well, as long as it's not the sellotape.
Well, let's get to the... Actually, it might have been the sellotape. While I'm looking for the sellotape...
Yeah.
Would say you're in a sticky situation, Peter, but clearly you're not.
I promised that we would have some of Lee Kumitet's favourite pieces, and this is the one that we think people would have chosen. We had so much response to this, and I think it was because it's often looked at as a bit of a taboo because it was about eating out. We had on the programme social worker Richard Pryor, a retired social worker, and we also had a regular contributor to the programme, Susanna Hancock. Susanna sadly died, so we will miss her contributions, but she's sounding here in very good form.
I mean, I didn't realise until I talked to my mum that actually there were messy eaters who were sighted. For instance, my mum was always spilling yoghurt or something down herself, whereas I never do.
Isn't that where you get your calmness from, Richard, having been sighted, and therefore you know what a lot of messy eaters there are around?
Yeah, I was just thinking that. I wonder if this is a genitally blind thing, whereas having been sighted and only achieved blindness at 28, I knew how to eat and things. So
we knew how to eat. We were taught how to eat from when we were children. I mean, my mum was extremely strict, and if you weren't holding your knife properly, she would give you a bang on the knuckle with her spoon or something, you know.
There should be training for it. I was very lucky in that when I lost my sight, the Manor House at Torquay was there, so that was a residential unit, and I was there for 12 weeks. And, you know, if we had any problem with eating, then there were ways and means to advise on how to get around it. So, you know, you'd have crispy fried bread in the morning and you'd say to the person opposite, I'm about to cut my fried bread, get ready to catch it.
Well, it does remind me of a story about David Blunkett. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me telling it because it's in a book, where he went to a restaurant one day and it was a big event, some formal do, and he was sitting next to somebody and he noticed that they had little finger bowls beside their plate to sort of wash their fingers. And he thought, oh, that's a really good idea. And he said to his neighbour at the table, isn't this a good idea, the fact that, you know, we've got these finger bowls to use if we, you know, need to wash our hands? And the bloke next to him said, actually, David, you're the only one who's got one.
Oh, how awful.
Yes, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Richard Pryor and Susanna Hancock. Fern Lulham is here. Before we come back to your fashion, have you got any eating out tips? I mean, is it something you worry about when you're...
Yeah, I don't know about tips. I am a messy eater. I don't even know if it's because I'm blind. I think it's just the fact that I'm a messy eater and so also happen to have a visual impairment. But the first date with my boyfriend, we went to an Italian restaurant and we had spaghetti. I mean, that's
that was
going
not
in
a
the
good
deep end.
move, was it?
I know.
No.
But he's still with me.
No, you were just showing off. Emma, you are teaching daily living skills. Presumably a daily living skill is eating decorously.
We get students that come to New College and sometimes they might not even be able to use a knife.
Really?
So we will start right from the beginning about their posture at the table, how they'll sit with their tummy up against the table, so that actually then they cannot bend down and nearly plant their face in their food. So we will teach them how to use a knife and how to hold it quite far down, to hold your fork also quite far down with your index finger nearly on the back of the fork, and how you can then use that to feel for your food around your plate.
Fern, fashion tips. I'm almost in tears over here with this wrapping. So tell us a bit more about your fashion tips, accessories and things.
Yes, let me tell you what to wrap yourself in rather than your presents.
I'm very clever.
There's too clever. There's lots of small backpacks around this season, which are perfect for keeping all of your little bits in, to also make your hands free. Because if you've got a guide dog like I have, got Nancy in one hand, you need your hands to do things with, right? Hats for ladies. We've got overly big pom-poms still in fashion with added sparkle for Christmas. Can you pull off a hat, Peter?
No.
We'll just leave it at
probably not.
No, I bet you look great in them. For the guys, tartan is still popular for the season, along with the usual novelty festive jumpers, socks, hats and scarves. And I've actually got a festive jumper here, which also plays a tune. It has got Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. He has got a sequined red nose, and when you press his nose, he sings a few little Christmas hits to you. Hey!
Rudolph on speed, yeah. I'm going to wrench us back to serious things. We've been talking about Lee and her contributions, and during the 2016 conflict between Gaza and Israel in the Middle East, we interviewed two blind women, one on each side of the war.
Another sound that we hear as well is explosions, whether it's the rockets or the interceptions, so that sometimes we hear that before the sirens. We are fortunate in that we actually have a shelter in our flat. So, it's a matter of walking 10 feet.
And what would happen if you were out?
Well, this is the thing. We kind of stopped going out except for very, very necessary things because I didn't want to be caught out and not know where to go. And, it's very, very hard to just follow other people or to see signs or things like that. And I found it very disruptive. Even if one of us went to walk the dog or to throw out the rubbish, it was scary. I just wanted everyone to be inside, and it's all consuming. It really is.
And Dalal, what about you? What about warnings?
Actually, we don't have the warnings. We don't have sirens like what Naama is talking about. We just hear the bombing. And because I've been living in Gaza for around 18 years now, and we've seen 2 wars before that. And I've been living in Lebanon, so I know the sounds that come are different. I know that the bombing's from the sea, due to the sound I hear that it's from the sea. Another thing that we have is the drones. We call it zannana in Arabic because it keeps zin, 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 the drones. And that's basically here all the time. I can hear it now. We don't have shelters where people could just go to because there's no place for them. Of course, we keep the windows open. We have to keep windows open because if any bombing happens and it shakes, the glass then doesn't break.
Well, it was a wonderful bit of radio. Still with us is Emma Williams. I've had rather a lot to contend with here, Emma, along with the wrapping, but I have found the sellotape.
Oh, yippee!
I've also found Lee Kumatat couldn't bear me struggling any longer.
I couldn't watch. It was
too
hard.
painful.
It was too painful. Do you want some help with me? Can I do the sellotape bit for you?
Okay, you do the sellotape bit.
Okay.
So have you got the paper wrapped around the present?
Well, sort of. It's at this point that I have to, because I've been embarrassed here because Lee's come in and the present's for her. So you've given the whole game away, Emma Williams.
No, it's not my fault.
So in a way, if she wraps it up, just tell us what we should do, all right?
Do you know, I'm used to being a producer. I could wrap my own present if you like, please.
Well, no, I don't want you to.
Well, here's a bit of sticky tape, and I promise I won't look.
Okay, so now you should have roughly an inch or so of paper hanging over each end of the present. Or a bit more, or a bit less.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sensing there's about half a foot. Am I right?
Okay.
And while you're concentrating on that, do I get to say something?
You do.
Here's your tape.
Thank you. Go on.
All really I want to say is that I've had almost 11 years of involvement with In Touch. It's taught me a lot about what I can do as a person, but mostly it's taught me about what visually impaired people are doing day to day, their struggles, their misfortunes and triumphs. And I do want to say, and I'm going to get it out before I get teary, that working with Peter White has been a joy, a pain in the
Until
neck,
now.
and a privilege. And thank you to everybody who's had involvement during my time here.
Okay, well, I'm filling up now, so we better end this show. That is all we've got time for tonight, but there are 2 more programmes from Lee on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We're going to have episodes where we've gathered 4 blind musicians together to talk music, stereotypes and careers. I'm going to have to give Lee her present off air. That's it from me, from Lee Kumatat, from Emma, from Fern and the team. Goodbye.
Scaffolding news for Friday the 20th of December. Ryde, Seaview and Bembridge. Scaffolding and hoarding. Scaffolding at 79 Park Road, Player Street, Ryde. Scaffolding at Coburg's, Union Street, Ryde. Scaffolding at 2 High Street, Bembridge. Hoarding at Car Park, Brooks Close, Bembridge. That's current. Skips at 92B George Street, Ryde, and 21 Well Road, Ryde. And Cows, East Cows and Gurnard. Scaffolding at 1 Bath Road, Cows. 42 Regency House, High Street, Cows. Cameos, 16 Bath Road, Cows. 5 to 7 York Avenue, East Cows. 134 St Mary's Road, Cows.
In Newport, scaffolding Monsoon 48 to 49 High Street, Newport. 146 High Street, Newport. EE Shop 122 High Street, Newport. Phones for You, High Street, Newport. 34 C Street, Newport. The Fireplace 9 James Street, Newport. Building materials at EE Shop 122 High Street, Newport. Skips EE Shop 122 High Street, Newport. 14 Mount Pleasant Road, Newport. In Sandown, scaffolding and Craig and hoarding, scaffolding at Methodist Church, York Road, Sandown. Hoarding at Premier Inn 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Crane at Premier Inn 1 to 9 Esplanade, Sandown. Skips at the Sheelings, Ferncliff Road, Sandown. In Ventnor, scaffolding, corner of Madeira Road, Ventnor. Old Town Hall 1 to 12 Albert Street, Ventnor. 1 Blendworth Terrace, Ventnor. Point Cottage, Church Street, Knighton. Skips at 16 South Street, Ventnor.